Hello everyone and welcome to Buddhism in the South. My name is Tenzin Choedrak and I am the Dharma instructor for the Savannah Buddhism group. Today's date is 9/11/2012 and I thought what better day to talk about compassion and loving kindness than the day that America was attacked. 11 years ago, the face and the history of our nation was forever changed. I believe you can ask anyone and they can tell you where they were and what they were doing at that very moment. I know for me, I was just getting off work from the night shift. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee, sat on the couch, and I decided to turn the TV on. When the TV came on, I saw what I thought looked like a pretty cool movie. It didn't take very long for me to realize that what I was looking at was not a movie at all, but was in fact real life. I remember sitting there and watching that second plane come into the screen and fly directly into that building. I remember the anger and the fear that rose up inside of me as I watched the flames fly out the other side of that building. But then my heart and my mind turned to the people inside that building. And that fear and that anger subsided, and immediately compassion took its place. I remember thinking of those people and wondering how bad it must be to feel so helpless that you would rather jump out of a building over 100 stories tall than to stay right where you are. Today, every single TV station, every single radio station are doing remembrances to those people and remembrances of that day. But what I would like to do is add a little bit of light to an otherwise dark and grieving day. I would ask you to change your focus, to change your attention, not away from what happened. We'll never forget what happened. But to change your focus and your attention toward what happened immediately following that. As I sit there and I watch the news footage, what got my attention was that complete and total strangers were standing in the midst of all the debris and all the dust with their arms wrapped around each other. It didn't matter what their race was. Their religion didn't matter. It didn't matter what they did for a living, and it didn't matter what part of the country they were from. What mattered most was that they were human beings and that they were hurting. All their differences were pushed aside. Everything was put on the back burner. Want to know why? Because it didn't matter. What I would like to ask you to do is, if you can bring to mind that compassion that you felt for those people, if you felt any at all, and I can't imagine that you wouldn't, but if you felt any compassion whatsoever for those people, and remember that compassion and feel the compassion you felt for your fellow man that day, and bring that feeling back to mind. Once you bring that feeling of compassion and that feeling of loving kindness back to mind, I want you to do your best to push that feeling down into your heart. Push that feeling deep inside you. Because I think the thing that we're missing today, 11 years later, is we've seemed to have lost that compassion. You see, right after 9/11 happened, everybody loved everybody. There were flags flown everywhere. Everybody was at their most patriotic. Men were patting complete strangers on the back. There were no strangers. We were all Americans. And we were all experiencing the same thing. And we all realized that each of us in our own way were hurting. Unfortunately, we don't see that level of compassion in the world today. We don't see that loving kindness in the world today. So what I'd like to ask you to do is bring that compassion to mind. Bring it down into your heart and start today. Not tomorrow, start today. And start seeing your fellow man with that compassionate heart. Start seeing that person that you don't get along with that compassionate heart. And that's hard to do. But we must, as a people, start being more compassionate toward our fellow beings. We need to start focusing our loving kindness on everyone, on every sentient being, every living being. Every one of us want the exact same thing, and that is a happy life. We all want a life that's filled with happiness and a life that's free of suffering and all the causes of suffering. Unfortunately, we're looking out there for those things, when in fact our true happiness is found in here. So as we remember 9/11, and as we remember those events, and as we mourn the loss of those people, bring to mind that compassion. Take it into your heart and start today. Start this minute. Start with your family members. Start with your animals. Start small if you need to. But sooner or later, build that compassion up to where you can look at any sentient being anywhere and instantly have a feeling of loving kindness toward that person. Or you'll be able to see someone that's suffering, and it may not even be someone you like, but you'll be able to see that person suffering, and instantly you'll feel compassion for them. So today on 9/11, that is my challenge to you. It's not an easy challenge, but it's one that if you work hard, and it's one that if you start small, you can eventually build up to the point to where you are essentially loving everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of what they look like, regardless. It'll happen. I promise you. Thank you for watching, and may you have a life filled with happiness, and may you have a life free of suffering and all the causes of suffering. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.